Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. I got tagged for the reader's profile tag by Genre Books. I will tag him below. I actually am not sure if he's the one who created the tag or not. If someone else created the tag, I will tag them as well. So there are, let's see, there are 10 prompts. And yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So the first prompt is, what makes for you a good book? So that depends on my mood, really, if I'm wanting to read fiction or nonfiction. If I'm reading fiction, I enjoy clever turns of phrase. I enjoy character-driven books. Yeah, that's just, I think that's a pretty good general idea. If they're character-driven and they're cleverly written, that's probably what I enjoy the most for fiction. If it is nonfiction, it really depends on what my interest is at that moment. I tend to prefer things that provide some sort of citation in it, a bibliography, footnotes, etc. Although I do have a few authors that I like that only provide the bibliography, but generally I tend to gravitate towards books that have some sort of footnoting to them. I particularly, even though I enjoy history books of all sorts, my palate cleansers tend to be biographies because those tend to be easier reads. Almost because they're focused on one person, it can almost feel like a fictional story. So it has a certain entertainment value for me. Just because the biographies tend to be relaxing. But I have a whole ton of interest when it comes to nonfiction. But history specifically is a focus for me. What books are you currently reading? So I actually just finished a book, so my list that I have here has gotten a little smaller, but I had a little crick in my back. For the David McCullough Readalong that is being done by Elder Talk and Bookzealots. The book of this month is David McCullough's Johnstown Flood, and I'm making pretty good progress. Now that I've finished the other book I was focusing on, I should be able to work my way through this pretty quickly because it's not a hard read. It goes really quickly. It's just that I was focused on finishing the other book. Also, I am reading for Big Book Summer, although I probably won't finish it by the end. I'm reading Les Miserables, and this is the non-abridged version. So it's long. I want to say 14,000. Yeah, it's 1,432 pages. Then I'm also reading the annotated Sense and Sensibility. I've read Sense and Sensibility multiple times, but this is the first time I've read the annotated form of it. Also for Big Book Summer. Now this, if I wanted to, could count for Big Book Summer because it's technically, in the annotated version, it is over 700 pages. Disjointed, which is about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I am reading this as well for Big Book Summer. Once again, this may or may not be one that I'm able to finish before the end of the summer just because I have so many books going at once. Then, sorry, I just need to set my computer so that my screen doesn't go black. There we go. I need to get back to reading this because I paused to focus on a different book, almost primarily, but the Lindisfarne Gospels by Michelle P. Brown. This is a holdover from quarter 2, but I also pulled it into Big Book Summer. Now this will probably be crossing over for the rest of the year just because I'm taking so long, but that's okay. I'm also reading Terry Brooks' I can't speak. Terry Brooks' Sword of Shannara. And even though this is an omnibus with the trilogy, I am reading the first book in the trilogy, which is Sword of Shannara. And this is a reread for me. I've read all the books in this trilogy before. Just put these back down over here. And then the other book that I'm reading that's a reread is Anne of Green Gables. I made a deal with my mom, who has been dead set against reading Jane Austen for a long time because she started with Emma and couldn't stand Emma. And she has been stubbornly refusing to give any of Austen's other works a chance. So I made a deal with her because I have been unable to make myself finish the Anne series. I just couldn't really get into the second book and haven't gone any farther than actually finishing the first book. So I made a deal with her that starting September, she would read Mansfield Park and I would read Anne of Avonlea. But I want to refresh my memory with Anne of Green Gables, so I am rereading this. And I've always enjoyed Anne of Green Gables, so it's just been Anne of Avonlea and beyond that I haven't really been able to get into. I'm hoping that I will be able to kind of draw her through Jane Austen by promising to read another Anne book and read another Anne book. So I've been wanting so much to share Austen with her, and if this is the way I have to do it, so be it. It's not like I have anything against the Anne books, I just haven't been able to get into the other ones. So it's not a hardship, but it is a huge victory to be able to get her to even agree to read any of the Jane Austen books, because she's pushed against me so hard. Because she just has not wanted to give it another shot. So really happy that next month she's doing Northanger Abbey. Wait, I said Mansfield Park, but she's actually doing Northanger Abbey. Northanger Abbey, and I'm doing Anne of Avonlea. Okay, so that's for prompt 2. So that's me reading what I'm currently reading. Prompt 3, what is the last book you didn't finish and why? Now, I didn't bring it up here, and I'm only mentioning the book that I don't think that I will continue. I'm not going to add in any books that I do see myself returning to when I'm more in a brain space for it. But a book that I didn't finish and I don't intend to finish, it's In the Pride of the Moment, Encounters in Jane Austen's World by John A. Dussinger. It just felt like a slog to work through. He had some interesting ideas, but I have a decent vocabulary, but I felt like I had to keep looking up things in one of my dictionaries, in any of my dictionaries, just to be able to get a better idea of what he was saying. And it wasn't like he wasn't writing about anything that was hard. He's writing about literature and different ways that Austen used encounters within her works to push forward themes, to further characterization, etc. But I felt like he made it um, more more complicated than it needed to be. He used language that was just more pretentious than it needed to be. And yeah, he just kind of seemed to be a little bit impressed with himself, so I'm not going to finish that book. 4. What obscure book do you wish other people would read? So this was a hard one for me because whereas I have niche interests sometimes, it's a lot harder for me to go, oh, I enjoy this particular thing and I want other people to read this. So anything I find that's more obscure, I don't know that I would necessarily be like, oh, you guys really need to read this because it's kind of an obscure interest of mine. But I don't know how obscure this book is, but I decided to go with this one. It's, sorry, let me just grab it. So I don't know how obscure this is, but it's When Death Becomes Life, Notes from a Transplant Surgeon by Joshua D. Mesrick. And I feel like this book makes a very good case for the importance of organ transplantation and just how much of a change it can really bring in people's lives. It can bring not only benefit to the patients, but it can sometimes bring a level of peace to the family in certain circumstances. So I really enjoyed this book. I probably need to reread it. I read it, I want to say, a couple years back. And it just made me double check on my license that I am still an organ donor, because it reminded me how important it is. And he runs through it in so he covers in different systems. So he covers heart, he covers skin, kidneys. I know he does liver, pancreas, and then he has certain case studies. What did I do? Sorry, you know, you have a weird stitch in your side. It's like it twisted weirdly or something. Anyway, yeah. So this is one that I think I wish people would read, because organ transplantation can definitely save lives and give people a second chance. Now, it does also discuss the difficulty that is when you're dealing with people who are alcoholics who keep getting on the liver transplant list, and then the ethical dilemma that comes with that. That is also covered in this book. Because, of course, there's only a limited supply of healthy organs to go around. So therein lies the ethical question of what to do when you have someone who has ruined their liver with alcohol, and now you have this fresh liver. So it becomes this whole ethical question. Like I said, the author discusses his experiences with dealing with this very question. And it's not necessarily that he answers a nice, definitive, tie it with a bow answer. It's nuanced. As I recall it, he covers it in a very nuanced way. But yeah, this would be the book that I would recommend. I don't know how obscure that is, though. What's the longest book that you've ever read? So I had to go and look at my story graph to see, and it looks like the longest book that I've read that's not some sort of omnibus is Washington, A Life by Ron Chernow. And I believe I read that last year. It's 930 pages. Now, once I finish Lemise, this will be the longest book. And then, no, I think this will beat out even Truman, because I think it's longer than Truman. So, but until the point that I finish Lemise, Washington Life is the longest one. Okay, if you could have a dinner party with 5 fictional characters, who would they be? Now, this one was something, it was a bit of a hard choice for me because, first of all, for one thing, I read a lot of nonfiction now. And then I also didn't just want to go like, oh, I want to choose just a bunch of characters that I like. I want to have something that would be, when I build up my little imaginary dinner party, I want it to be interesting and fun. So I don't want just a bunch of easygoing people. I want something with a little bit of spark to it. So, first person on that list would be Hercule Poirot. I've been reading Poirot books for, over 25 years. So, he's one of the characters that I feel like I know the best just because I've known him for so long. Then, as I was sitting there thinking about it, I decided to go with Mac Campbell. And I know most people pronounce it Campbell. I can't bring myself to just do that P as a silent. It's so weird to me. Like, there's a P in there. Anyway, Mac Campbell. Campbell. Anyway, he's in a character in Five Cousins and Rose and Bloom. But I'm thinking of him as he was around the period of Rose and Bloom. He's interesting because he'll get really excited about whatever topic he can be blunt, and he is a bit absent-minded insofar as like he'll forget everything if he gets into a topic that interests him, which makes him even more fun to have at one of these parties. And his bluntness could actually work in an amusing way with Poirotness. Although I think Poirot would actually be amused by him. Then I have a character that most people probably don't know. His name is Tyher, and he's from the book The Wolf Hunt by Gillian Bradshaw. And for one thing, I've always been a huge fan of Tyher. Tyher's not even the main character. He is a supporting character. He's a pretty important supporting character, but he is a supporting character. But he's always been my favorite one in that book. Part of it is that he's clever in his sense of humor, his loyalty, all that other kind of stuff. I think, though, that it's his sense of humor and his just his quick wit that would make him fun to have at this sort of setting, because he's got the quickness, whereas Mac is that person you can just talk to for hours about his, pet interest. Tyher's the one who will just come with that little witty thing that'll just make you laugh. And then Poirot is just Poirot. I mean, he's Poirot. Then the other, I really sat for a long time trying to figure out 4 and 5. So I ended up going for one of them with Spock, because you have that cool analytical mind, but that little bit of something else underneath it there, which is the part of him that Spock doesn't let out very much. He'd be another interesting person to talk to, but also, try to see if you can get to know the Spock that he kind of keeps suppressed, the part of him that he doesn't want to delve too much into. Because I think it's a human aspect of his personality, of his makeup, that he's learned for too long to kind of push down. And then I decided to wrap up this dinner party with the only lady in this party, Mara Jade, from Timothy Zahn. She was created by Timothy Zahn in the Thrawn trilogy. And for one thing, she could totally hold her own with everybody. She would probably be able to she uses irritating people sometimes to get whatever reaction that she wants out of them, to find out. She uses being irritating sometimes as a technique. And if she decided she really wanted / needed to know more about anybody, she's more than capable of handling herself in that room and using all of her different tools, because she can be charming when she needs to, she can be irritating when she needs to. She's a bit of a chameleon, and that's, of course, because of her training when she was the Emperor's Hand. So yeah, that would be my group. They're a bit of a mixed match of a group from all different time periods. Some of them aren't even from Earth. So, because Poirot, depending on when you are, you're usually around between World War I and World War II for him, for the vast majority of his books, I believe. And I haven't quite placed when Rose and Bloom is set. So I can't quite place which period Mac is in, but I know he's American. And then Tyher takes back to the Crusades, and he's Breton, I believe. And then you have Mara and Spock, who are outer space. So yeah, there's my 5 dinner guests. Number 7, 5 books you would want if stranded on a desert island. Now this was another hard one to choose only 5. So of course I tried to go with longer books. So the first one is the Bible, because I just feel like that's self-explanatory. Then I ended up going with the autobiography of St. Teresa of Avila. I have been trying to finish that forever. It's huge, but I got miffed with it because she was doing short little sections, which was really nice, because then I'd be like, oh, finish part of a section here. Oh, yay, now it's, there's another break. I can go off and do something else. Well, her sections started getting longer, so I couldn't just take my, little quick reads and then do a break. So I got annoyed at her and put the book away for a while. Completely petty. So I know it's a nice, thick book. I think that reading her autobiography would be a good thing to take with me, because it'll take a little while to get through. Then I ended up only going with one fictional book. It was really hard to choose the one. But I decided I wanted something Austen because of her humor. And also, I find that I get more out of it each time I read. So it was really hard to choose, but I decided I wanted one of the longer ones. And I ended up going with Emma. Even though Emma has not actually... isn't usually... it's not my top Austen book. But I find that I appreciate it more each time that I read it. And I'm a huge Mr. Knightley fan. And if it was going to go between Mansfield Park and Emma, I decided I would rather spend more time with Emma. Even though I could see it being a much harder decision if I was fresh off of rereading Mansfield Park. Then, after Emma, I have a book that I just finished. And I'll talk about this in a different video at some point once I organize my thoughts about it. But Rush by Stephen Fried. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and it's quite long. I think this is one of those books that I could get something out of each time I read. Plus, the way that it is written can feel almost like you're reading a really awesome story about a cool character that you just wouldn't mind visiting again and again. And in a similar vein, I probably would choose John Adams by David McCullough. I have not yet read John Adams, but I have previously read John Adams Under Fire. I don't remember who wrote it, but it's about John Adams when he was defending, when he chose to defend the British as their lawyer in the trial that followed the Boston Massacre. And I really came away with a huge respect for him for that. Not because he didn't choose to defend them because he had any personal stake in them. He chose to defend them because he truly believed that America needed to start off on the right foot when it came to our legal process, and that everyone needed to have fair representation. And so he offered himself up as representation for the British soldiers, even though it was highly unpopular. So I came with that with a huge respect for John Adams. And honestly, reading Dr. Benjamin Rush's book, or the book about Dr. Benjamin Rush, didn't change that for me. I do see where both Dr. Benjamin Rush and John Adams could be difficult men to deal with, but what I know of first Dr. Benjamin Rush from this book, and what I've gleaned from about Adams from the first of all the book I previously read on him, but also from in here, is I just like Adams, and he was a very good friend of Dr. Rush. So I would choose David McCullough's John Adams, not only because it's long, but because I would have both of their books to keep me company. One book, so then prompt 8. One book that you could not put down. Now, I think I've said this before, but for me, it has been, in most recent memory, it was the first of the Hunger Games books. I picked it up at some point during a night off, and I didn't budge, or I stayed in one place for as long as I could until people started getting up, because at that point I was working night shift and I lived a night shift schedule. So I spent all night reading it. I must have started in the middle of the night. And then when people started getting up, I read instead of going to sleep, and I couldn't go to sleep until I finally finished the book. So I read that all in a period of an uninterrupted period of time. So, yes, that was a book I literally cannot put down. Okay, number 9, 5 books or authors you will never read. So this one was hard for me. I ended up going with 50 Shades of Grey, Twilight, which I guess that's maybe not surprising because I believe I heard that 50 Shades was a fan fiction based off of Twilight, but don't quote me. I'm not sure because I have no interest in either of them. I have on here as well Stephen King, and that's mostly because of the strong language he chooses to write with, and I don't do horror. I don't. Just not my kind of reading. I think the only one of his books that I read was Green Mile, and I don't even know how I got a hold of it because I really didn't quite understand what I was reading. I was on the younger end when I found it. I probably found it at a used bookstore or something, and I don't know. But I haven't had any desire to revisit his books just because I don't like strong language in books, and I don't like horror. Number 4, I also would not read If I Did It, Confessions of the Killer by O.J. Simpson. I will tell you what, I find the fact that he even wrote that book to be disgusting. Regardless as to whether or not you believe that he did it, if you believe that he did do it, it's disgusting because you're rubbing it in the face of the family that you got away with murder. If you don't believe he did it, it's still disgusting because it's still mocking. It just seems like it's mocking the people who have had their loved ones killed. So I just find it to be utterly disgusting that he wrote anything like that. I also have down here, this is more of a most likely. My grandmother gave me her copy of Spare. Gag me. I am not going to be able to read that. I have heard enough excerpts, and I don't need to hear anything from Whinger Harry. So, no, thank you. I have no respect for him, and I don't have any desire to read his sorry excuse of a book while he whines incessantly. And for me, a bonus, I will not be likely to read anything by Gypsy Rose Blanchard, Jodi Arias, or Casey Anthony. I don't know if Jodi or Casey have put anything out, although I wouldn't be surprised with Casey Anthony. But Gypsy has, and all three of them have either admitted to or have been proven to be conscienceless liars who will just lie without a thought. So why would I read anything by them? So those are the books and authors I will never read. And 10, if you were to write a book, what would it be about? I never really had a huge desire to write a book. When I first got sick, I guess it's been 7 years now. It was not only a huge physical journey for me, but it was a big spiritual journey as well. And I had people tell me that I should write something about that. Every time I've tried, it's just felt weird, so I've never gone forward with it because it just hasn't felt like, it just felt weird. Like, no. I don't think I ever could. If I did, it would probably be something like that, but it just feels like it'd be navel gazing. Like, I wrote when I needed to most as a way to deal with different emotional states as I was processing what I was going through. So I wrote poetry, I wrote just stream of consciousness, that kind of thing. But nothing that would be in a book, and it was more for me than for anything else. I couldn't, that, if I were to write a book, it would be the kind that was suggested to me about the mixture of a spiritual journey and coming to terms with my medical journey, for lack of a better term. But most likely that book will never be written because I just feel too self-conscious writing it. It just, yeah. So final prompt is to tag people below, so I will do that. And feel free to answer with your own video, but if it's not something that is up your alley, don't feel pressured to do so. Thank you very much for joining me today. Hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. God bless. Bye.